a few years ago. Rudolph Giuliani said it looks like it was bombed during World War II or something. What's going through your head? You're in the middle of all this.
Well, I guess, like I said, my primary responsibility was the evacuation of my floor. And before anything, I mean, I should not to panic, and keep my head on my shoulder and making sure that everybody was out. And that was the primary responsibility that I had.
Your primary responsibility was to get everyone out. Now, what happened? Where were you when the building collapsed? When Tower 2 collapsed?
I was in front of City Hall, between City Hall and GNR Music World.
Which is about, what, 3 blocks away?
About 3 blocks away. And I'm looking up my building, number 2, in flame at the upper level. And then suddenly, I'm looking at the building collapsing like paper.
Yeah.
And, that's really frightening me at that point.
Excuse me, Russ Mitchell. Please forgive me for interrupting, but apparently another building in the World Trade Center complex has just collapsed downtown. This is a live photograph of yet another building. Keep in mind that the World Trade Center complex, check me as I go here, please, sir, has 7 buildings total. Has the 2 towers. They're gone.
Yes.
Now, we reported some time ago that 2 other buildings in the World Trade Center complex were in danger of collapsing. One of those buildings has collapsed. There is an unconfirmed report that is Building 5, but we do not know that. Other sources are apparently reporting this Building 5 in the complex, but we do not know that. What you are looking at, these are live pictures here. We've mixed live and tape, tried to make it clear to you throughout the day what's live, what's videotape. This is live tape, and you can tell it's at least another building collapsed because the density and the amount and frankly, the altitude of the smoke has increased so dramatically in that area. Keep in mind, and we've said this before, we say it again, what you're seeing are high shots. Now, here we're going to show you a videotape of the collapse itself.
Describe that.
Now we go to videotape, the collapse of this building.
It's amazing.
Amazing, incredible, pick your word. For the 3rd time today, it's reminiscent of those pictures we've all seen too much on television before when a building was deliberately destroyed by well-placed dynamite to knock it down. And so therefore the smoke that we were talking about, and keep in mind, there are firemen, policemen, other workers down there working, searching for people in the previously collapsed World Trade Center 2 towers, fates unknown. This is an incredible situation. This has never happened before in the United States. This is the most serious attack on U.S. soil that's happened.
This is Chris Clark in Nashville. Let's cut away just briefly from our CBS coverage for an update from Scott Couch. Scott?
Chris, I'm live at Father Ryan High School. To our viewers who've been with us for some time, we have a correction and a clarification to make. A short time ago, we reported that News Channel 5 had learned that a sophomore girl here at Father Ryan High School had a very close connection to the tragedy in New York City related to the World Trade Center and the planes that crashed into it. Officials here at the school had told us that the staff had recently been briefed about the sophomore student being related to one of the pilots on board an American Airlines flight that crashed into the World Trade Center. They were reluctant to release the name of the student to us, obviously for privacy reasons, but were of the full belief, everyone here, that that story was indeed true and correct. However, after contacting the family to see if they'd be willing to speak to News Channel 5, the family that we are referring to, however, we have not identified that family either, tells the school, who has in turn told us, that there is no connection between the school and what happened at the World Trade Center in New York, Chris, and we wanted to get on the air and clarify and make that correction as soon as possible.
Scott Couch, thanks for that clarification. Now, stay tuned to News Channel 5 and CBS. We'll bring you local developments as they occur. Let's return now to CBS.
Panes of glass crashing down into the street, and at that moment, the firefighters told us that there was a good chance that building number 7 was going to collapse. That appears to be what has happened now. I don't know exactly how many stories the building is, Dan, but standing at the base of it, watching it burn about an hour ago, it looked to be something on the order of 50, 60 stories. stories, as you said, a very, very large office building. And I don't know whether they were able to evacuate all of the emergency personnel before the collapse, but I can tell you that an hour ago, there were a number of firefighters and police officers in the area. They were watching building number 7 burn because there was frankly nothing they could do about it. The inferno was huge. So much of the building was collapsing into the street bit by bit that they were unable to do anything with it. And now it seems that building number 7 has finally collapsed, at least the 3rd building to fall in the World Trade Center today.
Scott Pelley in Lower Manhattan. I don't believe Scott Pelley hears me, but Scott, on the off chance you do we know anything about Trade Center Building 5, which is reported near collapse?
Dan, I don't know, but when we were down about a block from the base of the World Trade Center towers about an hour ago. And there was a great deal of concern at that time from the firemen that building number 7 was going to collapse, building number 5 was in danger of collapsing, and there is so little they can do to try to fight the fires in these buildings because the fires are so massive. And so much of the buildings continue to fall into the street. When you're down there, Dan, you hear smaller secondary explosions going off every 15 or 20 minutes. And so it is an extremely dangerous place to be. Heavy, dense, black smoke choking the firefighters down there. Very little they can do to save these buildings. We don't know what the condition of building number 5 is at this moment.
Scott Pelley, and we're told Associated Press quotes authorities as saying that building 7, the one you just saw collapse on videotape there, and this has happened within the last few minutes, that we're told that the building had been evacuated. Sir, you know the World Trade Center complex. What was building 7? Do you know?
It was the Solomon Smith Barney.
Solomon Smith Barney. Say again.
It was built for Solomon Smith Barney.
So Solomon Brothers and Smith Barney were in that building, headquartered there. Yes. But I want to emphasize that we're told that the building had been evacuated because it was in danger of collapsing in some time.
I don't know.
And in building 5, which is reported on...
This is Morgan Stanley building as well.
And you work in Morgan Stanley again.
Building 5 is the operation for Morgan
Thank you very much. And we get back to the point which has been made earlier in the day, we repeat it here, that the terrorists, whomever they may be, yes, there's a lot of talk about Osama bin Laden and others, but whomever this together, did so, a coordinated attack, attacking the 2 symbols of America's superpower status. The financial district, the Twin Towers now, and hearing about these other buildings, part of the World Trade Center complex around the towers being centers of American financial institutions, and then, of course, another of the hijacked planes hitting the Pentagon. Not by coincidence, they chose these targets for their symbolism. Now, we're coming up to the top of the hour here in our continuing CBS News coverage from our world headquarters in New York. We do have coming in additional video that you haven't seen before, taken by private individuals, and we're going to show you some of that as we pass the top of this next hour. We also, as we've been doing all day, at the top of the hour and then at the half-hour mark, try to bring you up to date on the situation, the latest information, and put a frame around this incredible day, a day that will leave an infamy in United States history. There are no reliable even estimates of the total number of dead and wounded in New York at this time, and it may be quite some time before we have that information. Another building in the World Trade Complex has collapsed. You are watching continuing CBS News coverage of the attack on America. Dan Rather at CBS News World Headquarters in New York as our continuous coverage of this day goes on. Now, we have new videotape of the attack on the World Trade Center. Let me caution you that we're giving this to you more or less raw. This is strong material, and some of the language you will hear. We want you to hear the sight and the sound of what happened this morning. But unfortunately, on this particular piece of tape, and one of the pieces of tape you're about to see, some of the language is strong. So if we can roll that videotape now or as soon as possible. One of the Trade Center buildings has been hit at a high floor, maybe above floor 90, by one aircraft. That would be American Flight 11. Now look at the plane coming in the middle. Oh, what a picture.
touch it. Oh my God!
That plane hit the second building at a much lower level. First plane hit very high up on the one tower, maybe floor 90 or above. Second plane at what? I don't know, maybe floor
71
and up.
Yes.
You may want to run that videotape again. This we just got into our newsroom, this videotape. And not long after this, first one and then the other of these towers collapsed, and now we've had Building 7 of the World Trade Center, where Salomon Brothers Smith Barney had their headquarters. We're going to re-rack that videotape and show it to you again. As we do the re-racking, say that we don't have any confirmed figures on the number of people killed at the Pentagon or the number of people wounded there in Washington where a hijacked plane